because it usually doesn't. So anyway, I guess it's gonna work tonight. So anyway, would I introduce him to my dad? Well, usually not. So I'm only thinking of a couple of guys like Bill Fredrickson would have probably been okay, but Ron Fournier, no, because all the time that Ron wasn't working, he was drinking, and he wasn't like a total slobbery, stony drunk or anything like that. He just liked being with a buzz, I guess you would call it. And I got tired of it because he just was either just a total homebody or he would take off with no notice or anything. And like if he didn't come home after work, then you knew he was in some bar. And then, you go looking for him to see what he's up to. And I never caught him with another girl or anything like that. Thought I would, but no, he would just be sitting there by himself, just drinking at the bar. And otherwise, he would be at home drinking and watching TV or something like that. But it was like such a boring life. It wasn't like, hey, let's go out and let's go do this or whatever. It was just he swung a hammer, and the rest of the time he was like home or disappeared to a bar room like after work and came in when he felt like it. And I wasn't interested in that kind of life. That was just ultimately boring, you know. I like to get out and about, go places, go out to eat or something, go to, a movie or an event or something. I didn't have any kids back then. And so, I was a free bird. But yeah, so like it just when I was with Bill West, Bill West was really a very clean, respectful, proper guy. For a guy with very little education, he used to study the dictionary all the time, so he could learn a new word all the time because he liked speaking very educated. And uh, like he couldn't even spell, he couldn't write. Yeah. Um, but he spoke like he was truly educated. And he was an Olympic powerlifter, 440 trophies, gold, silver, and bronze medals. The father of powerlifting known today, inventor of the incline press. He built the Venice weight pen when it was in Santa Monica, and then he helped to move it down to Venice, the original weight pen, and all those weights were welded. And I don't know what they did with them because they changed that all out the last time I went back home. They had all like machines down at the weight pen. It's kind of sad, but yeah, Bill. I mean, he was real good at dressing nice, and very proper. And so we went to some big party my dad had for something. It was in the rec room down at the old apartment, and he had invited us, and so we went, and yeah, there was wine, liquor, whatever, but Bill was sober when we got there, and he was like, I guess you would call it recovering alcoholic or something, but at times he would get messed up. And that's what killed him basically, was use of steroids, a lot of drugs when he was younger, and then liquor. Liquor is what finished him off even when he quit. His body was wore out. And that's what killed him. Very young, very young. But anyway, and then Bill was a bit younger than my dad at that time, which was a good thing. Um, And so uh, I, decided to bring him. He dressed real nice, and he was, so charming. And he was really good when he met my dad and they talked and stuff. My dad was quite impressed with him. And then, like, I don't know, a year or two later, I had this serious problem. I was driving the car. We were going down West Washington Way and then turned to go up, like, via Marina. Right before we got to Washington Boulevard, Bill flipped out, started punching the windshield out in front of him. He was riding in the passenger seat and I was driving the car. And he just started going just crazy while I was trying to drive. Scared me to death. I thought he was going to grab the steering wheel. I didn't know what was going on. He just like flipped right out. And so I'm trying to figure out how to pull his car over while he's just going nuts all of a sudden. And when I do get the car pulled over, then he gets out and he is like beating the windows out of the car. So I get really scared. I run, and I'm in like this really nice white two-piece suit with white heels, and oh my gosh, we were on our way to somewhere. I don't know what it was. Probably to go eat lunch or something. And I ran, and there was this house with the screen door, and the door was open. And I went and knocked on the door. Help! 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 Can I use your phone? And so um the person that came to the door was somebody that worked for my dad at his corporate. And I was like, oh no. And he's like, what's the matter? And I'm like in tears. And I'm like, well, my husband is like acting really crazy. And he's down the street there, and he's like busting the car up and everything. And so anyway, I can't remember. I think I was going to call the sheriff's on him or something. And so anyway, I'm waiting kind of near the car, trying to see, if he's totally destroyed this car or what he's done. And I'm walking closer and walking a little closer, and then guess who's driving down the marina? My daddy in his Mercedes. And he pulls over and he's like, what's going on? I said, well, I'm not sure. And I was like in tears, and this is the last thing I'd ever want my daddy to see, okay? He's very proper Navy man. He's not into the weird psych drama, anything like that. And everything is embarrassing unless you're absolutely 100% perfect. Everything is going to be totally embarrassing because he's very proper. And so we go, he says, well, why don't you just go get the car? And so we kind of walk over towards the car, and he says, well, I don't see Bill anywhere. Do you? And I was like, no. We get up to the car, and Bill is laying on his back in the grass next to the car, on the sidewalk, and his eyes are like glazed wide open, looking up in the air, and he's not moving. And my dad's like, get the car and just leave him here. Okay. So I get in the car and drive the car. And once we go over to the house with him and we park it over there, and then he takes me to lunch, whatever. And you can tell he's really upset. And I am totally embarrassed because, Bill made such a wonderful presentation at this party and was one of about the only men that I ever wanted to introduce to my father in my lifetime. Ronald used to get so mad all the time. Why can't I meet your parents? And I'm like, no. And he was like, well, I don't understand that. Am I not good enough? Or, he would always pick on me about that. I'm like, nope. And, yeah, trust me. And so here was the great and wonderful Bill West, who, just flipped. And my dad saw that. And my dad was just like, you should have seen, he was so calm. He's like, well, I mean, it was just like, whoa. I just want to crawl in a hole. So that was not working out. I thought, like in the song Love Will Conquer All and all that, you can fix all that stuff, with alcoholic and everything. And that he loved me so much and this and that. Trust me, you can't fix it. It takes the person to want to fix it, and it takes medical people to handle that. Um, and he died with those creatures in his closet kind of thing, I guess it is. But yeah, I just and then I had one boyfriend many years earlier that knew how well to do my daddy was and his corporate and everything. And he was like, well, uh, if we kill him, then we can inherit everything he has. And I was like, whoa. And so I figured I'd be the last person I'd ever tell who my parents were, because all they wanted me for was for my parents' wealth and not me. So I said, I will never tell anybody again, who my parents are, where they're at, anything, because, I want somebody to love me for me. And because, like, I was never sitting around waiting around for somebody to keel over and inherit a bunch of crap. That's not what life is about. You never know if you go before them. And so don't get your hopes up wishing that you're just going to inherit a bunch of junk. Um, it doesn't always work out that way. Go out, make a life, make a living, and enjoy life, but don't be expecting people to die off and leave you stuff. That's not the way the world is designed. You're playing the hope and prayer thing, and good luck to you if that's all you do, if you're just kind of a gold digger. Um, so yeah, would I introduce him to my daddy? 99% no. Is it because of the selections I had? Maybe. Um, a couple of them are pretty close to my daddy's age. I've definitely not introduced them. Um, and that's just the way it is. I mean, I totally avoided that, and I think I saved myself so much in life by being selective and making that decision for both reasons. Is this a past story or present? Well, if you've been here at the beginning of the vlog, you'd have known it was a past story because I just went over everything in my lifetime. But yeah, I just, for both reasons, for the value of my parent, and then if the person was good enough to introduce to my daddy. And yeah, I know. So I just got uh, you know to the point where I kind of kept my family out of it. When I had my first kid, I put on the hospital papers because I didn't want anybody to get the bill. I put on that all my relatives were deceased. I really did, because I didn't want them calling them either, you know. So that's how serious it got. Um, but yeah, I mean, there was just nobody just really 100% good enough. I mean, I've always never been good enough for my dad, I would say. Or maybe 80% of my life, I wasn't good enough for my dad. I've always felt. But as far as guys that I dated, it was like a big no. Only that one, and I regret that one, okay? I regret introducing my dad to Bill West, and then after what happened, um, that was so embarrassing. I was like, oh my gosh, how would I ever top that in my lifetime to override that? You know, I mean, I got a baby sister that's been with the same guy for years and years and years. They are like the Ozzie and Harriet of California. I swear, literally. It is the wildest thing. It is really wild. Just like out of Ozzie and Harriet, I promise you. And they're still together, and I'm sure they'll be together till they pass away. Um, and I give it to her, be long term with somebody. I was long term with most all the people that I was with, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever, some longer. And I thought that was long timer. But a majority of the people that I was with just really didn't want to get married, and I always had that wonderful dream, especially when I was really young when I left home. I just really wanted to be married to, these certain guys. Thought they were just the coolest or the neatest. And I think back today going, man, I'm so glad I didn't marry that guy. I'm so glad I didn't marry that other guy. You know, um, it's funny how you look back and just go, oh no, that wouldn't have been good. You know, um, so when you're young, I guess they call it young and dumb, especially when you're under 30. It's young and dumb. Run around circles till you're 30. Um, uh, you really think so much differently back then. You're in much of a Cinderella world, and then when you go years later, and even if you still know any of these people, and you see what they've done through the years and stuff, and then you go, man, it's a good thing. Do I feel bad that I left home earlier? Yes and no. Um, Back then, I left at 15 and a half, but I left a note and I only took what belonged to me. My dad had like a crew of 30 cops um, pick me up about a year later and deliver me to the house because they said, that I needed to go home. And I was like, and uh, that was about a 5-minute conversation. And it was over a cookbook that his girlfriend gave to me and signed to me. She was from England. She always give you books, and she would sign the front pages to you and date it. And he was like, "You stole my cookbook." And he was like, "Do what?" And he was like, "You stole my cookbook." I'm like, no. Your girlfriend gave that to me, and she signed it. And it's funny because that cookbook is worth $2,000 today. Um, but yeah, so um, I was like, okay, so I'll be seeing you. And I got up and walked out again. Because we didn't get along. And I think because we were much the same, we were like two bulls in a ring. Very stern, very smart, and we just it didn't work. It was like two playing King of the Hill. Now I would tell you, that I thought I was a smart cat. My dad was a jerk and everything back then. And I will tell you today, my dad's absolutely brilliant, iconic person, my idol, um, and just an incredible individual who's accomplished so much in his lifetime. Ultimate respect, ultimate respect. But in that day and age, it was easy to leave home and know your limits and know how to escape the law for curfews and all these other things. and how to dress appropriately so you looked of age, and how to act in public so you looked of age, so you didn't attract attention for the police thinking you were a minor. Um, I hung around adult people, um, not like trashy people, like they say, if you hang around with trash, you become trash. I didn't hang around people like that. Um, I hung around a couple dangerous folks, known dangerous folks. Um, they were very strong and powerful, and nobody ever messed with me because of those folks. Because all I'd do is pick up a phone if I was having a problem, 24 hours a day. Um, the rest were all, like engineers and, upper class folks. I always hung out in the nice places, like the Hilton, which is one of my favorites, Cavalier Club. Um, I worked in a grown up world. I learned how to get fake IDs so that I could work a grown up world and get grown up pay. Because if they knew you were a kid, they didn't want to pay you good. If you were older or you had kids, or a spouse, then they figured you were more responsible and they would pay you more money. And there was a movie that came out a few years ago about, I can't think of the name of it. And the guy went to the state pen and ended up, they cut him loose early to work for the IRS, and he still works for them today. And he this guy pretended to be airline pilot and and all that kind of stuff, and he wrote bad checks all over the place. He learned how to print checks and make IDs and all kinds of stuff. And I can't think of the name of that movie right now. But my life was much like that. Okay, I knew how to work the system, and once I got fake ID, then uh, that worked. You could go to downtown LA and you could go into the deceased files and then catch me if you can. Yep, that I relate to that 100%. I just didn't do a lot of the illegal stuff. But you could go to downtown LA to the Hall of Records and walk right in there, and as long as you had money in your pocket, you could go through the files and look through all the deceased files and find somebody with your same name or something close to it or name you liked, and then you could have them Xerox it. You paid to have them Xerox it. And then now all of a sudden you have a name and an age. And then you can make up a social security number, or you could get one from somebody else that no longer worked, and stuff. And so it was a piece of cake. Man, I had credit and everything, because I worked like usually 2 and 3 jobs all at once. I was out for the money. Okay, I wanted to live in the good places. I wanted to have really nice cars that were paid for. um you know I wanted to go shopping in the mall every day and buy a new floor length for a coat every year in a different color. I mean, I knew what money did. Okay, so you know it was easy back then. Okay, it was easy as long as you acted like an adult. You hung around high class folks, you know, and you knew how to talk, you knew how to act. I remember learning how to pick up a cocktail. You didn't pick it up by the base, like a glass of wine or anything. You carried it carefully around the top and drank a little bit at a time. But you didn't drink to get drunk. You drank to have a nice time. I was never one of those that never knew where I was at when I drank, where I was going to wake up at or any of that kind of stuff. I never went to rehab for alcohol or drugs. and in my life. And but I mean, I've been to some of the finest, nicest places in California. I know I had to have danced every dance floor in the state of California, from San Francisco all the way to Tijuana to TJ. Yeah. Um, before I had kids, I mean, I had an outstanding, incredible life. I could go anywhere, do anything because I had money. I worked hard, I had money. And so, my big dream was to be a bartender. So I used to carry the bartender's book around with me all the time in my pocketbook, and I would study it all the time, and try to memorize every single drink in that book, which wasn't even necessary because most people don't even order that crap. They just order highballs. Um, but that was my big dream. I did, fine dining, linen tablecloth dining. I worked at Conklin's restaurant, Marina Del Rey. Big money, big bad money. Yep. Man, it was amazing money. And was called back there again years later when some other people bought it. And one of my favorite customers, he and his girlfriend bought it, and they were looking for me to get me back. And some people found me down at Venice Beach in the weight pen and said, "Hey, remember this guy? He's looking for you." I'm like, "Really?" And I was like, "Man, that was one of my old running buddies. And they were like, "Yeah, they have Conklin's. He bought Conklin's." And I'm like, "No way." And so I went over there, and him and this girl named Paris had bought this place. I think it was mostly her money. And they wanted me to come work for them as a server really bad. So I did. I was server and bartender. And I don't know if it ever really made it or not. I worked there for a while, and then I think I decided to move to the Valley again. I would go back and forth between the Valley and Santa Monica and Beverly Hills, Century City. You know, um, you get tired of the beach, and then you go to the Valley, and then you get tired of the Valley, and you go back to the beach. And so, I don't know. I think if I could have stayed with my dad till I was 18, I would have, not had to rush into it and jump into something I didn't know anything about, like rent and utilities and buying cars and all that stuff. My main beef with my daddy was he promised me an education and a car, and when it came time, there wasn't any. And I'm like, well, the hell with this, because I can go to work and get my own. So I moved out. Um, but that was just the way I felt. I thought he was an idiot, and I was really smart, and which is not, totally true. I will tell you today that it was probably one of the dumbest moves I've ever made. But I did it, okay, and I was successful at it. I didn't have to sell dope or be a hooker to get through it. I was a lucky one. Um, I knew how to work the system, and I tell kids today when they talk all that poop about, oh, I hate living with my parents, and I was like, dude, you better pray for the money tree, because today you got to have a bank to move out. And to get fake ID is in the thousands. I remember I was in Huntsville one year, and somebody was printing up fake driver's license in Huntsville. It was $2,000. I'm like, no, I couldn't believe it. So I got mine out of the back page of like stuff like the National Enquirer and all that. They used to have like 10 different companies, and you could order a fishing license, and you could order a driver's license, you could order a library card, you could order all kinds of cool stuff. And all you needed was a photo booth, like down in the mall or an arcade, and and you just use the plain background and have like a very driver's licensey look picture, and then you just shipped it off with your info and a money order, and they sent you an ID in like 10 days. And so And I did mine for out of state. I did mine for New York, man. Why? Because who knows what a New York ID looks like in California, right? So they couldn't prove it was fake. Now, the liability of having fake ID. If you're in a bar room, which I was lots of times, um, the liability is not on the bar. But they would take the hookers and put them up against the wall, to put the minors up against the wall, and cap the minors' drinks and haul them out first before the hookers, okay, and the drug dealers. So it's really illegal if you're a minor drinking in a bar. But the bar doesn't take liability if you presented ID, because the law is picture, signature, birth date identification. Okay? And yeah. So that's all they had to have, to prove that they, checked your ID. So now I did run across, I was telling this story the other day. I was down in Santa Monica on Main Street, and this is where you park the car, and it's just lined up and down Main Street in Santa Monica with clubs. And you just bop in every little club. And some charge a door fee, some don't, but most all of them have doormen. And I went to what was it, the Orr House? I think it was called the Orr House, and like oars for a boat, and not whores, but oars for a boat. And this place, it had a really tall ceiling in a really old brick building, and they had stuff hanging from the ceilings and had it on the walls, and it was ultra loud. Not even big enough to put a band in it. Just really loud music, like kind of like rock and roll or something, which was never really my big thing. I didn't really care for rock and roll. But there was always a ton of people in there. And, the thing was to go to the bars to find one of your friends. It was always cool if you're going out and you saw some of your friends, because then it was a party. It was so much fun. Lots of laughs. But, you would go in and out of these different clubs to see which one you wanted to hang out at, or which one had the best music, or how many of your friends were there. And went to that club, stood in front. There was like 6 people in front of us. And this young guy looked like that guy that played Liberace's boyfriend in the Liberace movie. Looked like him, the surfer, blonde hair, combed back, and all that. And he was taller than me, and he asked for my ID. And so, I never got carded till after I was 21 most of the time. Okay? And so he decides to card me. And I hand him my ID, and it says Cooperstown, New York. See, my mom's from Cooperstown, New York. So I thought that'd be a good beginning, a real place, a real city, and all that. We didn't have internet back then, so you couldn't just sit around and pick stuff out. You just had to have a good guess. So I put on my fake ID, Cooperstown, New York, and then made up a really cool street name. It sounded kind of baseball-y. And yeah. And so, and then you could look up, area codes and zip codes in the phone book back then. So that worked out great. And so I hand him my ID, and he looks at it, and he looks at it again. And he looks at me, and he said, Cooperstown, New York, huh? I said, yes. And he says, I'm from Cooperstown, New York. And I was like, oh no. And he said, this crap is fake as hell. And I just looked at him and smiled, and he said, but you can go in anyway. Paid him $2, went in the door, and I'm like, damn it, man. Because it was like the only time anybody, could tell that ID was not right. But that was hilarious. But it worked all the rest of the time. I mean, I got jobs working in clubs and fine dining. I got into all kinds of clubs and I used it for checking accounts and everything else. Um, but yeah, the stuff I got away with years ago. Um, but I mean, it didn't do anything, grossly illegal or anything like that. It was just so I could get ahead in life and I could rent places to live. I could work big people's jobs, get big people's pay, and they didn't treat me like a little kid. Because, like I say, back then, you know, people didn't respect you when you went to get a job unless you were family orientated. Okay, that's when they would pay you more money. If you was like married and had kids because you needed the money. You needed the money. Um, if you were, older, they would pay you better because they figured you were worth it. Today, it's reverse of that. It's like as young as they can get them, and if they're foreigners and they can pay them cheap because they're day ones and all that other crap. That's what today's age is. Just hire a bunch of young junk that's not going to show up at work or play on the phone and dance around and just pay them minimum wage, or less. And so, but I knew how to work the system. I knew how to get the good jobs, the management jobs and stuff. And I was underage, Um, and just like when I was working Rodeo Drive, I was underage, but I had fake ID, Yeah, but I could talk the talk and walk the walk, you know. So, plus I had the education. My first college degree was fashion design and merchandising at UCLA. So I knew my crap. Okay, I worked for some of the top end retailers, in the business. Okay, and so I knew fine clothing. I also worked fine dining. I bartended. I did banquets. I worked for the hotels. You know, um, I worked all kinds of very nice high end places. From Italian, I worked Hank Vendetti's. Um, I was kind of surprised because when I was a kid, we used to go there, once or twice a week for dinner. So Hank already knew me. And then when I went to go get a job from him, I was underage. And he let me work for him. He knew how old I was. And he let me work for him, And he gave me that chance because I wanted to work. And I learned how to do fine dining for Italian. And I really liked that job. I really did. I liked working for Hank. And I didn't like his chef too good. It took us a while to become friends, but it was definitely a lesson learned. But so I'm glad I got that, experience. But today's day and age, you can't get away with fake ID. You can't go down and get deceased files and Xerox it and makes a birth certificate. You can't use fake social security number. You can't. There's a lot of stuff you can't do today. I mean, I've told kids, look, try to stay till you're 18 because you will save a lot of money. You know what I mean? And if you stay longer, that's even better. Um, because it takes really a lot, to go out and live on your own. I highly suggest not having children until you're like probably around 30 or so, and you're really sure that your situation is stable and you have two people to raise a kid because it makes it so much easier. I raised mine mostly by myself with no man's help and no welfare, no child support because I was tough. You know what I mean? And I wasn't even supposed to have children. They told me I never have kids, and I'm like, great. If I need any, I'll buy some. You know, I never really had a want or need. You know, but then when I ended up with my first one, which they said three men must have come in from the east, um, I figured it was God's will and took me out of the bar rooms. I figured it'd save my life. Um, if I'd have continued to keep drinking, I probably would have ended up dead. I guess. Because I could really put him down because I'm super hyper. There was one point in my life where I threw up blood, and I got tired of that. So I thought, well, I hate doctors and they scare me. I don't like bad news. You can see I'm still sick from the hospital, and because I don't have but like less than half my medicine, and so uh, you know, I just I don't suggest it in today's day and age at all. I can't because it would be a lie if I told you that would be the thing to do. Live your time out with your parents as long as you can, as long as you're welcome. I never had time limits on my children, ever. I never said they had to be gone by 18. I just left that door open like that. Um, you know, I mean, basically because I've enjoyed them, uh, um, especially my youngest one, except things kind of changed. But I always, uh, welcomed her to be staying. And she always said she would never leave. And I'm like, one day you'll meet somebody nice and you want to have a life and a family and get married. You don't be like hanging out with your mom your whole rest of your life, probably. But I appreciate the compliment. She used to always say, "I'll never leave you," and you can't just hang out with your parents your whole entire life. I mean, I just don't know about all that. Um, but nice compliment though. But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot the way I did it. I don't know if I would actually say I totally regret leaving young like that because I did it and I made it. You know, um, that song New York, New York, I'm gonna make it there. I'll make it anywhere. That's me. I've always been that way, and very strong-willed. Let's see. Do you think since you left home early, your parents resented you? I don't know. I probably hurt my daddy pretty bad. But see, here's the thing. I didn't like totally abandon my dad. Um, I always made it a point to call him or appear if he was around because usually he traveled all the time. I mean, all the time. It was just as bad as when we lived together. He just was never around. But that's because he was always teaching. He was trying to make a living. He was trying to keep a roof over our head. We moved off the boat and he was trying to do it like he was supposedly supposed to do it, to raise kids, to have a roof and all that, which actually it was kind of ruined. The boat thing was so much better. It was the coolest thing. Best life. Loved it. Yeah. And, but, I mean, I didn't intentionally hurt my daddy. I always made sure he knew where I was at. Um, whatever city I was living in. I always made sure to never deface the family name. Number one, don't deface your family name. Because boy, oh boy, if it gets back to your parents that you did some damn shady, stupid, damn stuff, or you got arrested or something or other, oh my gosh, you are a heathen. Don't deface family name. So I was pretty good about making sure that stuff was right, I did have a couple occasions in my life where I was at one of those, like, I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was like exit stage left because I was like, I don't need any problems from this legally. I don't need to be around people like this. I need to go immediately before something bad happens because I just know something's going to happen, and so I need to like get away from them. And so I was real good at doing the two Larry drop. That's what they used to call it, the two Larry drop, man. And so yeah, um, that was real important to me, to not deface the family name, to not have somebody go back and tell my daddy, "Oh, by the way, I saw your daughter," or something like that. I was really careful about that, but I always contacted my dad for holidays, birthday, whatever. If I couldn't afford a stamp and a card and send it in enough advance time for him to get it before that date, then I always had, a freaking dime to put in a payphone and call him. Not collect, don't do that. But I always made sure to call him and wish him, a happy Thanksgiving or a Merry Christmas or a Happy New Year or a Happy Birthday or a Happy Father's Day. I always made sure. I only took once to miss one, and it was like he wouldn't forgive me for years. As a matter of fact, like, now I didn't have the money one year, to give him a birthday present or Christmas present or something. And it was like I never saw another gift from him again until I left the state of California. Yeah. And then he was sending gifts, and it was like for my kid and for me out of state. And it was like, God, I had to leave the state for him to appreciate me. It's like he's paying me to stay away, right? Yeah. So I was always, pretty good about, being respectful like that. And then on occasion, he would say, well, why don't we get together for lunch or get together for a dinner? Come by, the sailing school, or, give me a call or something. And, most of the time he wasn't around for that. He was always like going somewhere, to Hawaii or the Bahamas, or doing some lecture at Annapolis or something. And so, it didn't always work out right. Um, but you just waited till the next time. And when you could get a hold of him by going by the business or calling him, then, you know, he'd say, hey, let's go do it right now. Where are you at? You know, and that's what we do. But, you had to be just dressed just right, nothing too spacey. Your hair done right, tone down the makeup, be, kind of straight-o and very classy. And be very serious, and be careful what you say, and of course never cuss or anything like that. That would be just heathenistic. Um, and be sober, no drinking, no drugs, man. And just have a lot of good answers, be very respectful, and because it was only like for an hour or two, you know, so you just had to have all your crap together for a couple hours, and everything would be fine. But I didn't just totally abandon my dad. Now, I hated him when I left home. I absolutely hated him. And people were like, why do you guys hate each other? You never are together, or, like hanging out, or I'm like, because I don't like him. And, um, it took years for us to be friends again. Um, and mostly I think it was because he resented me because I looked just like my mommy, and they parted ways, and they both hated each other. They both talked crap about each other. And that's what I grew up with. And that's not fair. And I never wanted my kids to have to go through that. Because that's not happy. I mean, it's like in my day and age, for parents to divorce was just the absolute number one big no. And you were a scarred child, and it was the worst thing in the whole wide world, if your parents were divorced and all that kind of thing. And, to me, it didn't really bother me. It was really kind of good because they didn't get along, okay? And it worked out great. Uh, they didn't need to be staying together for as kids at all, okay? Really. I, you know, Life is so important, there's no reason to live it sad. Stay completely out of negativity. That's rule one, okay? So, I would never expect my parents to stay together and still not get along over us kids. I don't disrespect them even today for separating at all. You know, I mean, uh, his doctor asked me one time, "Well, what was your home life? Like growing up as a kid?" I'm like, "Fine." And they're like, "So, I mean, your parents still married and all that?" No. When did your parents divorce? When I was like 7. You know, and then they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Why don't you ask them? It's none of my business, right?" I drink some water there. I'm choking, but and they just look at you like you're nuts, you know, and it's like none of my business. That's between them. I still to this day don't know exactly why my parents split, and I never had the guts to ask, you know, because I don't think it's my business, you know. That's between them. It worked out great for me. I thought it was a great thing, you know. To this day, I still think it was a great thing. They just didn't get along, and no one should have to be in misery, really. Um, I mean, it took a real downfall on my mommy. She just kind of self-destructed after the divorce, and I believe she initiated it. Um, so I think my daddy did just fine, but I don't think she did well with it at all. I think it was a huge problem. Um, Although I really believe she initiated it, but that's them. Um, it was a shame because they built a great empire together. They really did. They did. They built an outstandingly outrageous empire together and ran a business together, and they were iconic in the industry together. There will be no other. Never. Just never. But as far as the personal life and getting along as a husband and wife, didn't work. Didn't work. Okay. But such is life. But would I suggest it to a kid today? No, absolutely not. The things are not possible that were possible years ago. There are curfews. There's no way you can really have fake ID. You could pay for a really good one in probably other places and stuff. I've heard about them and stuff, but it's a big problem if you're carrying fake ID. It's just like putting fictitious tags on a car. It's not even possible today. There's so much stuff you can't do. Do you think you'll move back to California to be with your parents? Um, I mean, I go back and forth through the years, but you know, I'm not a great fan of California. Um, my brother is dying for me to come back. Has offered huge money for me to go back. I don't know. There's a lot of things going on right now. I'm very displeased with, and I would like to be very far away from here. Um, just financially, I'm just not there at the moment. I've got a lot to do. Right now, I'm trying to save the storages, and it's not good. And my health is really bad. And there's just a lot of things going on right now. But I mean, I've been all over the states working. There's lots of great places across the United States. I've lived in more places than just Florida and California. Um, so, uh, there's a lot of places to be, especially now with the rent and real estate coming down, which I predicted it would take 2 years for it to start coming back down since the pandemic. So it's been about a year now. I think in another year it's going to get even more lower and back to normal. That was my prediction. What area is your favorite? Of where? In the United States? Anywhere near the ocean. I like the ocean. I can breathe better next to the ocean. I didn't get asthma and all that stuff and all those allergies until I left California. And it was like, man, Yeah, it really affected me bad. Is your favorite to live? Well, I mean, I always liked Carmel, California. I always adored that place. Balboa Island was cool. I've never lived in Carmel, but I have lived in Balboa Island. Um, I don't know. I've lived in San Francisco. I've lived kind of all over. And I've lived in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Memphis, um, Huntsville, Alabama, different parts of Florida. Trying to think of where else. Oh, Mobile, Alabama. Um, I've lived in different places, and then had dual residences at the same time. Um, but I mean, I like even right now, if I had the money to leave right now, I would definitely leave. I don't want to be here anymore. Um, I don't know exactly where I would pick, but I would probably just like roll. My car is real bad right now, so it's really hard to roll anywhere. Um, but I would just roll. I would, pick a place because I guess I would be cool with just about anything. I mean, I've lived in the snow. Um, I've lived in the country. I'm not a real big fan of the country. I'm just not a dirt girl. I'm city, and I do like by the water. But sometimes you can't have all those things. In California, I remember when I lived in Torrance, and I was an hour from the beach. And that was horrible. But rent was cheaper the further you got away from the beach. But um, you know, and just like living in the valley, you have to drive an hour to Topanga Canyon to get down to Santa Monica and Malibu and all that. um, because I used to love to go to the beach all the time, mostly to go to the weight pen to go work out or roller skate down in Venice all the way to Santa Monica. I always loved that. But I don't know, just fun, happy places with people with positive attitudes. I found Oklahoma to be a bit depressing. Um, a lot of those people couldn't see the sun for the clouds, and I got tired of that. Um, it just wasn't my thing, I had a few friends there and stuff, but they just kind of all were the same way. They just couldn't see the sun for the clouds. Always talking poop and stuff, and I can't do all that depressing negativity. You know what I mean? I like to keep it happy. you know, every day counts. Trust me. One day you're going to close your eyes, you're going to open them, and all of a sudden it's 30 years later. And you just go, what have I done? So make every day count. I thank God I did that with most all of my life. Every day counted, you know. Um, so, if I'm not making money today, I've just lost money by the time I got to tomorrow. I hate that part. So every day counts. But I don't know. I just any place that's new, it doesn't make a difference. In time you'll make some friends if they're worth it. Um, you'll know. And like my baby sister said, when I left California, I was like crying for 4 weeks. I'm like, oh my God, to go to Oklahoma. And she's like, well, just think you can always come back. And I was like, yeah. But you know what? It's harder to come back. It's harder to leave. It's harder to have the money to leave. You know, that flight was $400 one way back then. And the damn cat cost just almost as much to ship back. Because my aunt said, well, you can bring the cat too. Oh my gosh, you don't want to leave the cat. I had a big black Persian cat. Um, And that was so dumb. It would have been better off to just give it to somebody or something. It's just a huge waste of money. And I left my cars there, figuring I'd be back to get them, or I would just hate the place and come back, and that was a disaster. Um, so I guess you could always leave if you didn't like it. But sometimes change is good. I mean, when I worked in Memphis, I made humongous money. Humongous. Icicles of snot, thigh high boots, floor length mink coats. God, it was so flippin' cold. But the money was huge, you know? And I love to be where the money's at, buddy. Let me tell you, you know? I worked hard for that money. But, Memphis is no longer like that. There's no money like that anymore. It's not like that today. So the money's wore out. So, you know, there's no going back to that. Those days have all changed. But it just depends. It just depends. I'm cool with just pretty much whatever. It's not like I have to have friends or people I know or whatever to move somewhere. Not at all. I make friends wherever I go. Um, it's just seeing if you can find any that are worth it. Once you live in California, you'll find out that a lot of your friends are not real. And a lot of them will steal from you. Um, there's really no such thing as a real friend in California. Um, yeah, true story. Very true story. So you kind of learn how to kind of run solo and um, kind of take care of your problems on your own. Use your best judgment. You know, um, and as long as you follow your heart, that's all that matters. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. If you follow your heart in your life, you won't regret a lot of things you do. I mean, I've done so much in my life. I could be 200 years old. I've learned and done so much in my life, and there's still a lot of stuff that I would like to accomplish in my life. And so, it will be exciting to get to those. But yeah, I don't know if I would have written that book any other way. I learned so much in my lifetime. But no, I didn't. I don't think, I don't think I really hurt my daddy because I stayed in touch. Um, and I when I left, I did it appropriately. I felt with respect. Okay, and that's all that matters. I think it probably hurt him, because I left. Maybe I don't know. We kind of hated each other pretty good back then, I guess. I'm pretty sure. We were just no, like two bulls in a ring. I was just as smart as he was and all that kind of stuff, but honestly, I wasn't. You know, um, I mean, I'm glad I did what I did. I was very successful in what I did for many, many years. Uh, I tried to hang around the right kind of folks. I I never went to jail. I didn't have a record. Um, I enjoyed some of the finest places at all times, whether it was by myself or with people. Yeah, I could afford it. Not a problem. I used to go up to Cavalier Club and go get prime rib all by myself, like once a week. Yep. Spend $25 to have prime rib dinner with a hot bacon salad that they set it on fire at your table. It was really cool. Yeah. I liked stuff like that. hmm I could enjoy it by myself or with people. Didn't make a difference. hmm But I knew a lot of very well-to-do people in California because of my dad's business. I mean, everybody knew who I was, and everybody knew who my daddy was. And I had so many cool open doors for me, and some of the finest places. It was hard to believe. Just hard to believe it was like the golden key. But I hated that name. I would never use my daddy's name most all of my life. I hated that name because they would instantly recognize me as being related to my daddy. And I didn't want that. I wanted them to like me for me, you know, not see me as the walking $100 bill or the great inheritance. Um, because again, you don't know what tomorrow is bringing. I remember my dad was teaching a guy named Paul Schwartz, and he was the son of the guy that owned Hughes Scrap Metal. Okay. And that was like after Howard Hughes died. And this guy owned Hughes Scrap Metal. And the family was filthy rich. And this guy, his dad would ship him from Marshalltown, Iowa, on plane. And then he would stay with us when he'd come. And his dad paid like all private instruction for, Paul to learn how to sail and do celestial navigation and all that kind of stuff. And he would end up staying at our house most of the time. Um, and then he would start driving out with different cars, collectors cars of his dad's. Like he'd come out in a '56 Vet, convertible and really cool stuff. And it's like, no, that's my dad's car. And I mean, his dad apparently had a horrendous car collection. And then he bought Paul a Ferrari, brand new, and put it in the garage. I remember Paul telling this story. He turned bright red when he would tell this story. And his dad bought him that, put it in the garage, and he's like, "Yep, I got you that car." And then he's like, "Well, great. Where's the keys?" And he said, "Nope." He said, "Not till you graduate college." So he was in there waxing the thing, and stuff. He didn't get to drive it till he could graduate college. That's right. And his dad was filthy rich. Um, Funny stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would have wrote the book much differently. Um, I experienced a lot of good things. I learned how to be streetwise, street tough. I could go to nice places, fine dining. Uh, I knew how to act. Uh, I knew how to act around very wealthy people, in that, and have people respect me. Uh, I knew how to do an interview for a job and get the most money, make them pay me the most money back then. Uh, because I could sell myself. Um, I think one thing maybe I would have changed was not drinking as much and doing as much of the party life, or just doing Coca-Cola instead of liquor, because I remember when, I totally quit drinking, and my friends would call me and say, "Hey, let's go clubbing." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I can do that." And it was like I quit drinking, so I'll just be drinking Coke. And then people got bummed. They're like, "Oh, you'll be no fun." And I'm like, "Why would I be no fun?" "Well, because you don't drink anymore." I'm like, "I still go clubbing and dance and stuff. And, I just drink Coke. I don't want to drink liquor. It makes me too sick." And, you know, uh, and it was like I lost a lot of friends because they thought I was a dud because I quit drinking. But there's things about drinking too. You get into this casual thing where it's like, "I'll pay the bills tomorrow," or "I'll do that later," and stuff. And you just postpone stuff. You're very casual. And when you start losing some of your stuff because you're casual, um, because of the drinking, that's when, you got to wake up. You got to say, "I need to quit doing that and take life seriously and take care of my business every single day, and not just go, I'll do it later." So yeah, maybe probably that a little bit I would have changed, even though I didn't have kids back then. So it really didn't make a difference. The only one I had to worry about was for me. And back then, like, I could leap off tall buildings in single bound, and I could run faster than a locomotive and all that cool stuff. I could fly. Um, you can accomplish a lot of that stuff when you're younger. You're like bulletproof and all that other cool stuff. But, as you get older, life changes. uh, so like mileage on a car, Um, so that might have been about the only thing I probably would have changed. I got 5 college degrees, so I got that down pat. Um, I would have I would have rather gone to be a lawyer. With all the years I did, and doing my dream educations, it could never be possible of being an engineer. That was my big dream because I hung around with a lot of engineers and I liked them. I love the conversation. You talk aerodynamics or whatever. I love all that. Um, is The only other option would have been to be a lawyer because it was equivalent to the amount of years I did in college, and I think I probably would have been a pretty good lawyer. Yeah. So, like my youngest daughter, she had decided to be a lawyer, but I don't know that she's pursued any of that. I haven't talked to her in years. Have you thought about doing something engineering? Yeah, when I get a place to live and, I have my clothes and all that, I've lost a lot of my engineering stuff and the storages that were stolen uh, back around the pandemic, which is terrible. All my books and all my drafting supplies and stuff like that is all gone, and it takes a ton of money to replace all that. Yeah, but yeah, I do like engineering, and I'm ME, so I can do just about any engineering. It's not specialized; it's jack of all trade engineering. So yeah, but that's not possible at this time, not at all. So like all my good clothes are locked up in storage right now, and it's going to be interesting trying to saving them from the auction. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know that I would have done it much different. I learned a lot, really, I did. I worked, in some of the finest places. The bar and restaurant business is always something you could fall back on. Um, Clothing was always very, very good at selling stuff. I probably should have been like a huge car salesman when I was younger, because I've always loved cars, live and breathe them. Tell you all about them. Love to turn wrench on cars, but not for a job, but for hobby. I'm a hobbyist. If I had my dream today, I would have a big wing like that would be big enough to hold the spruce goose, okay? And I would have all kinds of cars in there that I like, and sit and play and turn wrench on them. That's what I would do. Paint them, everything. Because I just love the older cars, and they're easy to work on. So it's just a thing with me. But I wouldn't want to do it for a job. Okay, you know, and but that's always been one of my dreams. I've renovated several houses and stuff, and not for me. And then I've done one for myself, and it got taken away by a tornado. That'll teach you just once that nothing is forever. Okay. Yeah, but no. Getting back to the subject at hand. Uh, no, I never defaced my father. Never defaced my family name. Thank God. Thank God. I was smart enough for that. Um, I left young, but I made that choice because I was very strong-willed. And I knew you had to work to make the money to get the things you wanted, so I worked a lot. But I also got a good education. Would I rather have a van? I had a van. I gave it away to somebody that needed it. I normally have like 3 cars, and I don't now. And it's really bad because this car is having some real, pretty serious problems, and it's going to get real interesting real quick because I do not have the money to buy cars right now. Um, but No, I don't have any interest in boondocking and living in a car. Not at all. That is not my way, especially when it's just about illegal everywhere you go in the United States. It's just not a feasible thing any more than having an RV. It's just, not feasible. It's not what I'm interested in. I've always traveled for work. That's not a problem. I've always enjoyed seeing different places and things and seeing places I've been to before and people I've seen before. Working California to Florida all year round for many, many years. I've always loved that. But no, I like a very elite apartment complex. It's quiet, but has a lot of great amenities, or a house, you know, with good neighbors and stuff in a good area. And but no, I don't want a van. I don't like a van. I really don't. I mean, right now, if I had one, it'd be great, I guess, because they have showers in them and you can cook in them and do all kinds of cool stuff. But I mean, it's just not. It's not anything I need to have right now. Um, I mean, there's a girl on YouTube called ZZ something, and she got out of her car homeless. She's up in Jersey, and she got a really crappy deal on a van, like a fool, paying like 2,500 a month. And I'm like, man, you could rent some place for that. Why on earth you want to be like homeless in a van when you can rent a whole apartment and pay utilities right now for that kind of money? It's just lame. But she's another one of those youngies that she thinks that's a cool thing. Like it's a big road trip. Oh, I will boondock and travel all over the world. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's what I say. No, I'm not really interested in all that. I wish I could say I was, but I'm not. There's just no place to put the crap. You know what I mean? If you're, in a private vehicle that doesn't look like you're camping and stuff, then you're better off. You have less problem. But if you're in one that's made for that, you gotta have a place to put it. You gotta start paying to stay at RV parks and stuff, and you know, and all that kind of thing. And I'm not really interested in all that. And the bigger you get, the more it costs. Like RV, man, years ago it was $400 to fill an RV up. Guess how much it is today, dude? No, thank you. And then just to put it at a RV parking place is a big hairy deal. Um, that's costly too by the day with the hookups and all that kind of thing. And my last husband, I said, man, we should have an RV when we travel. And he's like, oh God, I did that years ago. He said, I hate it. I'm like, why? And he's like, God, it's a big hairy deal once you get over there and gotta hook this up, hook that up, and stuff's gotta be drained, and then you gotta put it all back together, and then you gotta go put fuel in it again and make sure everything's all in its place so it doesn't rattle and roll all over everywhere. And it's so big you can't stop anywhere. And there's just so many problems with them. Like, wow, I didn't realize. You know, you just figure you just get in there, turn the key, and go like a car. It's not like that. It's a lot involved in playing the RV game. Yeah, but no, I don't really have an interest in that because I don't like living in the car. Even on the road, I've always pretty much had hotels, but sometimes I'll stay at a truck stop on the road when I can't get a hotel, you know, and that kind of thing. But and there's a point of danger to it too. But after a while, you just want to go home. You're tired of being on the road, you know, and it's nice just to go home. It's really exciting, you know, and take a day or two off and just go home. and be in peace. And you don't have to be around any people, just your kids or whatever. It's nice. So, yeah. So that's where I'm at. No, I don't enjoy boondocking. I don't enjoy that kind of life at all. I'm not a camping person. My day of roughing it's a room at the Hilton. Hey, hey. Yeah, I'm not a camping person, period. People always try to get me to go camping my whole life, and I'm like, no. No. I'm not for snakes. I'm not for bears or any of that other crap. Out in the woods, no. Why? There's no reason for it. Why would you sleep in the woods, like in the dirt and put up tents and all that other crap and bugs and snakes and all that when you could sleep in a bed, at a hotel or your house? I mean, I can't relate to that. Let's see. Oh, I did do camping one time in my whole life out at the Indian reservation, which I think I did a YouTube vlog about that with Serena. Oh my gosh. Ugh. Yeah, that was pretty terrible. Really pretty terrible. Yeah. Hope to never do that crap again. With horses and the whole deal. You know? It's really bad. Would have made a good movie. Yeah. I'm just not there. Just like living in a cabin up in the mountains. It's just not something I'm dreaming of. You know what I mean? It just, I guess California kind of spoiled me. You know, I'm a city girl, but I like the beach. I like the ocean. You know, I live just next to the water. It's kind of okay, but the ocean is better. Saltwater fishing, all that kind of stuff. Dolphins, all that kind of thing. I like that. I grew up around it, and I can breathe better. Yep, that's exactly it. But yeah, no, I'm not a boondocking person. I hate it. It's the worst life you could ever live. Absolutely terrible. Yep. And it's not like you have like a whole bunch of friends and all that kind of stuff. You can't tell people who you are, boondocking. They look down upon you. God, strangers go by you, and if you open up part of your car or whatever, and they see you got stuff inside or whatever, they like just think you're trash. And there's a lot of people that are like homeless since the pandemic. And some have tried, some have not. I've seen a lot that have not tried to become terrible alcoholics and druggies and have died and stuff like that. It's really sad. You have to be really, really strong to work through it. So, I mean, I'm like bound and determined, to get ahead. I'm used to making a huge amount of money, but I can't right now because my car is in bad shape. But I'm used to making a huge amount of money. Where like I can have several thousand in like a week or two. About 2 weeks, yeah. Yeah, that's about right. Can't even accomplish that right now. Yep. So you just deal with it as you go. But yeah, so anyway. Maybe I'll be a millionaire YouTuber. I can't believe how some of my YouTube friends are like up in the millions in subs. That is so amazing. It's just hard to believe. Yeah. So anyway, I just thought I'd tell you guys a little story, and maybe you can learn from it, whether you're young or old. But be selective in your life. Be careful what you present in your life to your parents, because you may regret it. Yeah, it was like that one chance, that one guy that I thought would be okay. And the next time my daddy saw him, he was an absolute failure. and which makes me look like a failure for being around a guy. How embarrassing. Yeah. And I never ever wanted that to happen again in my life. Ever. Yep. Because then I would be looking stupid and that would be terrible. Yeah. You're supposed to learn the right way the first time, you know what I mean? You're not supposed to keep banging your head against the wall doing the same silliness over and over again, you know? So, yeah. How embarrassing that was. Mm-mm-mm. I'll never forget my daddy's face. I mean, he was so calm. But he just happened to be driving by in his Mercedes. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. I mean, I literally took my heels off and was running down the street, okay? Barefooted in a white two-piece suit. How embarrassing. Yeah. So, do I regret not introducing any of the other guys I was with to my dad? Nope. Nope. I made the right choices, and I'm glad I did. I would say my dad didn't miss really anything. And those guys were not, wedding capable. That it didn't work out that way. It's when you're young, you're just so in love, and you think, oh my gosh, he's going to ask me to marry him and all that. You'd be surprised. There's guys that just don't want to be married, or they want to date around or whatever, you know, and that's not how it works. You know, it's like the first guy I ever dated, I swore I'd be married to him for sure. And today I go, man, I'm glad that I didn't marry that guy. You know, and yeah, as life goes on. hmm So yeah, the biggest thing I could say for advice is do for you. Don't let anybody hold your life up. Don't be a fool and waste every day on some junk. Keep going forward. Do what you're supposed to do, working or whatever, and keep some friends. Don't. The biggest problem is having a guy and they don't want you to have any friends. That's the worst problem. Oh my gosh, that'll ruin you. But anyway, I will talk to you guys later. I'll see you in the next one. And I love you. Do something kind for a stranger. And we'll see you in the next one.